Hello, my spooky friends. I'm John, your host, and welcome to another episode of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest. And the great spooky guests continue. Again, no pressure. I had great guests all 2024, so I'm keeping the streak alive. This is a big, long streak, so no pressure. But I have Oscar from Induced Fear podcast. Yay! Hey, Oscar, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I live in the great state of Wisconsin, so we are freezing our butts off. I don't know about where you live, but yeah.
Colorado. It's cold here too.
It's cold here too. And I know Colorado very well. I visited many, many times. My friend, good buddy, lives in Denver. So I've been out there and I'm like, it's crazy in your state. You'll get like, oh, it's like 50 and sunny. It's too bad. And then foot of snow.
Yep. That's what it's been like. It went
Awesome.
from high feast to dropping to the negative. It was -2 this morning.
Yeah. Yes. So it's just awesome. And by the way, both of our states have some great paranormal events happen, great spooky stuff. And, we're a flyover state. Maybe yours not as much of a flyover state that Wisconsin is, but I'm just shocked at the spookiness that's in the Midwest. Not to say there's none in other areas, but I really look at it like, a lot of people forget about that. Like, obviously, Stanley Hotel, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the mountains, there's a whole bunch of UFO stuff, and we both share that. But what I love about Colorado is you guys have had a lot of tragedy there because of, sometimes people coming there for riches and fame or to find gold or silver or copper or whatever they're finding, mining some stuff. Right? There's a lot of tragedy and everything like that. So I just love it. I love that we can kind of, don't want to use the pun, but kind of mine our states and then kind of go around, right? And find some great stuff. So tell me, Oscar, what inspired you to do a podcast for your Induced Fear?
Well, originally, I wanted to do a YouTube channel because I've always been into the paranormal ever since I was little. There was always this draw to this unknown world that we all love so much. And originally started off as a YouTube channel that I wanted to just do a top five spooky stories. Came up with the name Induced Fear then. Didn't use it. Sat on that name for probably 3 years.
Okay.
Then when everybody we were supposed to stay indoors. So I was like, I'll just join along with everybody else who started a podcast at that same time.
Yeah.
So I decided, I can do this. Started with telling stories, and then it eventually turned into interviewing people who experience things. And it's been a wild ride because it's just connects you with so much more of the unknown than when you originally started the thing.
Yeah. And isn't that great? I've met people all over the world I've had on this show, from authors to Satanists to ghost hunters to mediums and one thing, and you've probably found this out too, everyone's really cool. Like, I haven't had anybody saying, hey, there's an alien in my closet and I've been keeping them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's the mentality that a lot of people feel like, sure, you like the paranormal, kind of, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, no. And then when you start talking to people, I don't know if you've found this out, but like even normal people are like frightened to bring up their paranormal story, right? Like a guy at work, like you might bump into and he might be like, hey, Oscar, come over here. I think my house is haunted. How do I know my house is haunted? Right? Isn't that interesting? I just find that fascinating.
Yeah. No, it as soon as I started this, when I started talking more with people, and even just then, people would ask the question of like, oh, what do you do in your spare time? And it would be doing podcasting in the spare time outside of work. And be like, oh, what do you talk about? paranormal experiences. People share their paranormal experience, and then as soon as they hear that other people are sharing their experiences, they're like, "Oh, well, I have something."
Right.
And yeah, and then they go in to
Right.
share, which is awesome.
Right. And I love it. And I think, I don't know if this is one of your reasons too, is to take away some of, I don't know, the mystique of paranormal, because again, Hollywood builds it up as this everything's scary and everything's creepy. And that's not necessarily true, right? And you watch
Right.
dramatizations, whether it be Ghost Hunters or whatever show, I was scared by a ghost, or, my ghost ruined my life, and blah, blah. And people, see that. Well, that's just a fraction, right? That's a
Yeah.
small fraction. Most of the time, it's like, yeah, I have this ghost in my house and keeps opening doors and shutting cabinets at 3:00 in the morning. It's kind of annoying. You're
Yeah.
like, but it's still interesting. Like, why is this happening? Like, why? Right? I find that
Yeah.
fascinating.
You're left
again.
with the question of why at the
Yeah.
end of the day for a lot of things. It's just like why or what.
Yeah, right. The good thing about it, there is no real answer about it, which makes the mystery keep going, right? So, talk about your paranormal experience you said when you had at a younger age. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, the first things that really started off were sleep paralysis experiences. And this was way before, I guess it was a widely talked about thing.
Mm,
Or maybe it was talked about and we didn't have as much access to the internet back then to where people can just share through videos or just talking on, post boards or whatever. I remember it starting because it was right after my father had passed away and I was about 7, 8 maybe, and I didn't know about anything really on the other side. I mean, during that time you are taught believe in God, Jesus, things like that. So that was my extent of the spiritual side. But I ended up making a call out there, like just like a prayer, if you say, just kind of calling out into the unknown, like, hey, whatever is out there, let me just see my dad one more time. Let me just get a glimpse of him one more time. But I'm putting the call out to anything out there. I just was like, anything that is out there that can make this happen, do it. And then I started having these experiences of feeling something coming into my room, but it didn't feel comforting at the time. And as a child, I just feel a heaviness kind of enter the room, the sound of silence, which is kind of like this weird humming. It's weird to describe it as silence when you do hear a certain noise.
yeah.
And then I couldn't move, and when I turned my eyes to the side, there's just a dark figure there.
Ooh.
And immediately, that's when fear kicked in, and I'm trying to move. I'm trying to yell for my brother because we shared a room at the time, and I don't know what's going on, which makes me even more afraid.
Mm.
I'm trying to call every yelling, like anything I tried to say was just letting out a gasp of air. And the more I tried to yell, the more I had no more air, it felt like, left in my lungs, and it felt like I was suffocating.
Yeah.
And then eventually, just out of nowhere, snap out of it, and I'm sitting up in my room. I look over at my brother. He's still fast asleep. And I just go to our little box TV that we had in the room, turn it on, and leave it on static. It's just the static. All I needed was a light. And I just sit there in front of the TV like, what just happened? I have no idea what just happened. All I know is that it freaked me out to no end.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that happened. And then after that, it was periodically throughout the years, I would feel this presence kind of enter the room, and it would just feel heavy. And the shadow is darker than the darkness of the room, as most people describe. And it would never say anything. It would just kind of be around me, just kind of lurching over me. And I couldn't move, nothing. There was nothing I could do in those moments. But, as you get older, then you start to ask more questions of why, what could this be? Then the internet comes into play and you're able to ask these questions about it.
Yeah.
Like, is anybody else experiencing this? What could this be?
Yeah. As you find out too, sleep paralysis is, I wouldn't say fairly common, but a lot of people suffer from it. And some people suffer from every night.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine that, right? Couldn't even
No.
imagine seeing that
No.
every night. That messes with you. I mean,
Yeah, especially with the fact that people see different things. Like, it's not always like the Hat Man or a certain creature. I know some people have had, it's a black cat that sits on their chest and they can't move. There are stories of people who see a spider coming from the ceiling. I had one person send in a story about what they described as a mermaid crawling up on their bed. And it looked wet and everything. And then they were in sleep paralysis.
I haven't heard that before. I know a lot of stories from like the Philippines and stuff where actually people have died. Like people have died because whether you call it sleep paralysis or something, where they feel like an old hag on their chest, sitting on their chest, and they can't move, they can't breathe. Now, some of that I think is tied to like in America, we have kind of mostly top flight doctors, mostly top flight professionals. The Philippines, I'm guessing, you're going to have a challenge finding that top flight doctor. Not to say there isn't any, but that's why a lot of people come to America to get better health care than other places in the United States. So we don't know what that is, but the mystery is why is it happening? We're talking just normal people, just people who just, I don't know, or farmers, maybe work at a factory, maybe, who knows, drive a car. I don't know. We're not talking about living in a village with witch doctors. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're just talking like guys like you and me, just trying to make a living, just trying to get by and enjoying their life. So, that's perfect segue. What is the weirdest story that you've had so far on your podcast that you went, oh, that is strange?
Well, I want to say there are two.
Okay,
because
great.
one really stands out all the time, and it's a simple story of just this one guy came on the show to share. Just he's like, there's no other way to describe it, and he just explains it. And he's driving home late one night, sees what appears to be a giant, like, black dog crossing the road. And as he's explaining this, he's like, yeah, I'm just driving. It was after work, and there's no other way else to say this, but by the time it hit the other side of the road, it just stood up on two legs and continued to walk away. And that one always stood out because it was so simple. There was no really embellishments to it. It didn't turn around and chase him. It just almost like it didn't even notice him. It just strolled across the street, stood up on two legs, and kept walking into the field or forest that was there, which that still I will always play in my head. Because you get really a good image, like you get the image of it in your head.
Yeah.
Another one this was early on, and this guy sends in a message saying, I was an abductee. And he talked about it. It was also took place in Colorado near Estes Park. He was driving home. A bright light kind of came down from the sky towards his car to the point where they swerved out of the way. He was with his wife, and they kind of went off into like a ditch. Thankfully, they didn't go off because there it's like a mountainous area. Thankfully, they didn't go off the road. And he's like, when I got out of the car and was checking my surroundings to make sure everything was okay, my wife was gone. And then turns out he ends up getting a call like later on that night saying that his wife was at the doctor, like probably 30 minutes away at the hospital. And he's like, how's that possible? She just wandered in here, sir. So he goes over there, he rushes over there, and she has no recollection of him. She can't remember. So he's thinking, I don't know, maybe I was out longer than I needed to be, or than I thought I was. And she kind of wandered all the way to this hospital, doesn't remember me. And she was very adamant, I don't know who you are. But he kept trying to remind her, like, hey, we're married.
Right.
And she ended up remembering little things, but it took a toll on their marriage. They ended up going separate ways. But after that, he started having dreams of a child trying to contact him and he believes it's connected to that moment. He feels like he was abducted, they did something, and he didn't know what to think. He's like, I don't know if this means I have a child somewhere. I don't know if this means I was abducted. I don't know if I just have a brain injury from going off of the road.
Right.
But that one always stuck out in my head as well. It was like, I mean, to get that early on is cool when you're first starting your podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, then he ended up going dark, unfortunately. He only answered like 1 or 2 questions and then never responded again after that.
Yeah, and that's even more mysterious, right?
Yeah.
Like what happened? Did he just want to forget about it, or did something else happen? That reminds me of we both had on our podcast Leslie and Robert Shaw, who are a very sweet couple, very nice couple, and they talk about it. And their view is more like they're trying to help us. Like they're trying to show us, like, hey guys, you're messing up. We better fix it. Like a dad telling their kid, sitting them down, for that talk. You're messing up. Let's try to fix it. Why other people I've had on, like Karen Wilkinson, where she claims she's abducted night after night, and experimented on, she's saying no, they're here to do harm. And here's my debate, and please chime in. I think it's like people, right? You meet a cool guy, yeah, he's a real cool guy, and he's like, hey man, I'll try to help you, I'll try to whatever. And then you meet people who are like, hey man, what's your problem? Right? Isn't that interesting? Like, because they still have personalities, right? Aliens have to have personalities. What is your thought about that? Do you think it's a little bit of both? Do you think you take one view or the other?
No, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, come with anything that has some type of intelligence, you're going to have them make their own choices in the sense of they can see us as weaker beings. I mean, either way, they see us as something that is doing something wrong to the point where they have to intervene and tell us, like, hey, cool it. You guys are messing up the planet. You guys are doing this or that. And then you have other people that are like, there's no fixing them. We have to be the ones to do it because they're not going to do anything.
Right.
So it's almost like it's gentle parenting and the belt,
Yeah, right. Carrot and the stick, one of those things, right? Is there something, a topic that you're looking at that you haven't looked at yet that you're kind of like going, man, I got to look at this again. I got to take a look at it, because one thing that intrigued me just looking at your Instagram and everything, you did like a Halloween special and stuff like that. And one of the things was, people who have met the devil. Yeah. And I find that fascinating. I don't know. I'm okay. So like, just to kind of switch topics here a little bit, and sorry to get a little off topic, but like when I've done research, like exorcisms, for example, like that exorcisms fascinated me. Okay, the exorcist who was to the Pope. Okay, this is the number one guy. This is the guy. Okay, he's said in an interview one time, 98% of people are they have a mental issue, a health issue. They're living in a certain world that they believe this is happening. But 2%, I'm not really sure about. So I guess talking about topics. Let's just talk about that really quick. Is there something that you're just like, man, I got to cover that. That's really interesting. I got to take a deep look at that.
The ones that always interest me are the things that go on within, I guess, state parks or just large forested areas. Like, people always tend to have something crazy. There's a combination of everything within the forest. There's the lights that people see, these cryptid type creatures that people see, and there are also stories of just the woods or the forest being haunted. So I would love to dive more into that, and then there's the missing people that will just go missing, the stories of people who have gone missing and then come back, and there are stories of seeming to be trapped in another world because they can see the people looking for them, but they can't interact with them. And that always like kind of baffles me. It's like, what is going on there? Do you just kind of slip between worlds in
Yes.
a moment?
Yeah.
Is there something going on within, I don't know, just in nature, that it's a more natural environment, natural vibrations, energies, whatever you want to look at it as, that you kind of just slip
Yeah. Yeah.
between
And
it all?
that's fascinating to me too, because there's been numerous stories about time slips where people have been like, they've been on a plane, or they've been, just walking somewhere, and all of a sudden they're back to the 1800s, and they're like, okay, this is really weird. What's going on? And then they try to revisit it again, and nothing happened. Now, a lot of that can be explained away of maybe there is, like, science will say there are certain mental, not diseases, but challenges in your mind where your mind sometimes just goes kind of short circuits.
Yeah.
And like if you're a history major and you're really into history, and then one day you're walking down the street and all of a sudden you're in Tombstone, Arizona with the OK Corral and Wyatt Earp, you're like, okay. But then you can't explain away some of the things they're saying, like how do they know the colors of the dress? How do they see these people's faces? And you can say, well, they picked up a book and they looked at a book and here's the picture. But when they're saying no, I could see the red, the deep red in the dress, or the deep, right? You're just like, okay, either they're taking it too far or something's going on. And why would you make that up? You're not going to make money off of it. And attention, well, does it really anybody care? Not really. I mean, so it goes in the story, and everybody goes, that's really cool. So, you know what I mean? Like, what's the point to that? Right?
Yeah, that's what I always think too, is like, there's nothing to gain from it, unless it's like somebody in the sense of that is already connected to either the movie industry or, TV executives in a way, and they're making a story out of it.
Yeah.
But most people are just like, hey, I know this makes me sound crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't really talk about it, but this is something that happened to me.
Yeah.
And then for us, in that sense, we're not there to judge them. We're just there to allow them to share their story. I mean, I've had plenty of people. One guy who could communicate with UFOs, he said, and he was like, I know it sounds crazy. I know I'm coming off as crazy, but this happens, man. And I was like, hey, I don't think you're crazy, dude. I don't think you're crazy. Like, it's not my place to do that. I'm just letting you talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I had a medium on, and she was talking about how people all of a sudden their eyes would turn black in front of her, and she'd be like, "Okay," you know what I mean? And I'm like, "Well, why would she make that up? Like, what? She's not like making $1 million from that story." She also talks about how she can do interdimensional travel and stuff, and she goes places, and how one time she almost got stuck. And that was absolutely fascinating to me, and how she can communicate with, like you said, different beings and everything like that. And also I've talked to like spirit guides and stuff which is fascinating to me. I love that, because everyone's supposed to have a spirit guide.
Yeah.
And, they talk about, going out into the woods and meeting, a Native American or somebody who's trying to help them and tell them to go through life, or tell them that they need to tell, others in authority that you're destroying this world. So I think there's some good that comes out of it, and some things that you just go, okay, that's interesting, because there is evil in this world. No doubt about it. I mean, and how you ever, I don't know, label that or define that, I don't know. But, I've seen evil firsthand, and, in a person. And it's like, and I'm not talking about their eyes turning black and stuff. I'm talking about, this was a bad person.
Yeah.
All around bad person. And I don't know why this person became that. I have no idea, So that what kind of talks to my second question for you about people beating the devil. So talk a little bit about that episode that you did, and what kind of stories did you find out regarding that?
Well, there are there's the classic tale of, going against the the
Yeah,
devil.
yeah.
The birth of like what we now deem rock came
Yeah,
from.
Robert Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have, what was it? The Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
How there's that story of this man who just appeared, and when they looked under the table, they saw that his feet were hooves.
I love it.
It's just like lots of things like that. I mean, you have regular everyday people where they just kind of, again, run into somebody that they look at them and there's this deep feeling of like, I am not getting a good feeling from this person, and it probably couldn't be the devil. I mean, to them, it feels evil enough to be deemed the devil, but
yeah,
you just see that these, as you said, these evil people that are not necessarily possessed, or their eyes aren't black, or
right.
they don't got horns on their head, but there does seem to be people that others run into that have this energy about them that is just strictly negative.
Yeah.
It is 100% negative.
Yeah, and that is interesting to me because I talk to like paranormal investigators, probably like you do too, where one was talking about that they went into this room and they were like, well, this is bad. Like, because this one couple was telling, this residents were telling them, we don't go in this room. A gentleman died in that room. Nothing of like suicide or anything, just died, just natural causes.
Yeah.
But they said it was just horrible. Like the feeling in there, you just felt dread. And it was just terrible. And then one of the mediums went in there and she was like, okay, we got to get out of here. And we're like, everybody was like, why? And they were like, well, I'm seeing a demon that is lurking in that closet. I can feel it. And I'm like, wow. And they talk about how they got home and they felt really sick. And there was just these strange things happening where boxes would be thrown around the house, like knives would be thrown around the house. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
That's like, how do you deal with that? And they didn't get into too much in depth. Why would you? Because I get it. You might feel a little, they might, a little crazy, whatever. But you don't want to bring that up. That's a very, heavy subject, get PTSD, what do you want to say, right? But they brought someone in and, it was a medium came in and was able to take care of it. And they brought in a priest and they'd be able to take care of it. But there are people from my experiences with interviews that they can't help them. They're beyond help and they just got to move. They just have to move. And I'm like, that's absolutely just fascinating. Like you were talking about the shadow, like that's all they see around the house, shadows and darkness. And that's interesting, right? That's fascinating to me.
Well, yeah, especially because like, I mean, we've had an incident here with me and my fiance, and we picked up this old like Catholic, I want to say it's called a maniple, but I'm not sure. It's what they lay over their arm to wipe the cup after people drink communion. So it's just this ornate kind of piece of fabric that they lay over their arm. And we picked it up. I'm at this oddities festival. It was this person who just curated things that they would, if a church was closing down, or they just picked up all these religious items, and we brought it home. She loved it because we have kind of a corner of just old religious items in our place. We got home late, so we threw it on top of the dresser, and it was next to this pair of the light up devil horns that you kind of just click on, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't work. We bought them and they were immediately broken. Classic thing of going to an event and just buying something that's already broken. So we just put them over like one of her little stuffed animals that she has on the dresser, and in the middle of the night they turn on and the room is just filled with this red light. I thought it was weird, and then she kind of already was pointing to this piece of fabric that we already bought. She was like, was it that thing? And I was like, I don't think so. I think the battery just somehow connected and now they work. Now I can click them on and off. But she kept having these moments because she would be home at the time that I would be gone for work. She kept having moments of hearing banging in the house, in our place, and hearing people talk or just weird noises. And she would be texting me saying, I heard this. And I would say, well, we live in a condo. The neighbors are probably home. Not because I want to dismiss her, but because I don't want her to be afraid being home alone. And then one day she just wakes up crying, and I'm like, what's going on? And she just kept saying, I saw it. I saw whatever it was. It's that thing over there. And she's pointing to the piece of fabric. She's like, it's that thing. I saw it. It was ugly. It's ugly. She couldn't describe anything else. She just kept saying, whatever it is attached to it is ugly. I saw it. And she was crying. She didn't want me to go to work. She was like, please just stay home. So I stayed home. I ended up contacting some friends who could help me, I don't know, decide what to do with this thing. And a couple of them were like, get rid of it. Go and bury it, like on hallowed ground in a cemetery somewhere, or burn it. And I don't know if it's me being naive in a way or something. I was like, well, I spent money on this thing. I don't want to just destroy it. So somebody helped me with doing a prayer over it and, with holy water, the whole shebang, and kind of just locking it in like this jar. And we left it outside for a while after I did this, and everything kind of died down. No weird things were happening anymore. And so after a while I was like, because we left it out for a long time. Just left it out on the balcony for a long time. Through snow, all kinds of stuff, just leaving it outside. And eventually we brought it back inside, and now it's in this jar, in a case, surrounded by a bunch of other religious items. Not in a dramatic Annabelle kind of way.
Okay, something like that. Do not touch!
Yeah. Yeah, put a sign on it. But it was one of those moments that really, I don't know, set things into perspective that, okay, I'm kind of opening the door to certain things if I'm just allowing things into my world.
Yeah.
And now I have to kind of be prepared for it and know what to do when things happen.
Yes.
That was one of those moments where something felt either evil or not good. I mean, especially she felt it. Me, I'm kind of like dense like a rock when it comes to those things, to those types of feelings. Because somebody will say something's haunted, and I'm like, all right, send it my way. Whatever it is. I don't know if it's haunted or not, but she immediately will see things and be like, nope, that's not good. That's not good. It's that thing right there. So I have to learn to trust her in that aspect.
Yeah. And you don't want to bring into this world, I get a lot of warnings from everybody, like Ouija boards and certain things you don't want to do. My thing is cursed dolls. I do not like cursed dolls. No, thank you.
I have a haunted one right above me right here.
I was going to say the clown things that you got going there, but whatever. I love it. That's awesome, Oscar. But I'm like, but cursed dolls, nope, not going to deal with. Like, I would immediately just throw it in the trash and be, I'm on my way. But, other people are like, I have some guests on and they have a whole room full of cursed dolls. And they're like, yeah, there's some weird things that happen, but I kind of like, bring it on, And that's, like you said, not to the sense of dense. I'm sure you're not dense in the sense of you're more like, yeah, okay, bring it on, right? Let's see what happens, right? And that's what always cracks me up about people. I'm like, you sure about that? Maybe you want to rethink that, because there are, cursed boxes. My favorite one, before we get to our topic here, my favorite one is the cursed laptop. I don't know if you ever seen this. There's an article about a guy. It's a funny story that he supposedly took this laptop, put it in a graveyard overnight. He did a bunch of satanic rituals over it. And then he says, it's cursed. And I'm like, hilarious.
Yeah.
Like he says he opens it up and like all this weird stuff. I'm like, dude, the reason the weird stuff is working is because you kept it in a cemetery overnight.
Yeah.
It's a laptop. It's not like a tough book like they use in the
Yeah.
military or something, you moron.
That's
So
so
like
weird.
things like that, you just got to shake your head at, right? Like,
Yeah.
really, dude? Like, okay. But awesome. So let's get into our topic, shall we?
Yeah.
Here's a little teaser for you. So ready, Oscar? For decades, a grand Italiente mansion sat withering away in the countryside near the small town of Eureka, Wisconsin. Tales abound of ghosts, bootlegging, secret tunnels, the Underground Railroad, and Al Capone stopping by on his way to his Northwoods hideout. What began as a dream come true for two twin brothers quickly became a nightmare they had to leave behind. So I love haunted houses. We all love haunted houses and everything. And please chime in anything you want. Maybe you have something here in your neck of the woods that you've done a story on, or you just want to just kind of add some comments. So let me kind of give you a little bit of history of the mirrored mansion. I don't know why it's called mirrored. I'm going to try something really quick here. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Hopefully you can see it. If not, I'll send you a picture. All right. So let me open it up here first. Yeah. So that when you see it, you're like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's haunted. I get what you're saying. All right. Let's do this. Okay. Whoops. One of the things I see it and I go, yeah, that's par for the course. I totally
old
get
creepy
that.
mansion checks.
Yeah.
Checks that box.
All right. Okay. Okay. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. That's what it is. So what do you think?
Yeah, it's
Creepy
exactly
mansion, right?
You can see, I think, just by looking at it, why it's mirrored, why it's labeled mirrored, because both sides are exactly the same. It's just, there's no difference in the way that it's shaped.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same on each side, the exact same number of windows. I mean, it's blocked by a tree on the right side there, but it has that same little covered area on each side.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a fairly recent picture. It's still standing, I imagine. So let's get into a little bit about the history of it, shall we? So the mirrored mansion was identical twins, Augustus and Argalus, Foote. I love names back in the 1800s, don't you, Oscar? Brought their families to the wild frontier of Wisconsin from Massachusetts in 1849. By the way, Wisconsin only became a state in 1848. They purchased an initial 80 acres of land where they built the house and eventually brought an additional 160 acres. So 240 acres, making this the largest farm in the area. They also bought the nearby Eureka sawmill, where business boomed as steamboats hauled lumber along the Fox River to the thriving city of Oshkosh. The brothers were very close and couldn't bear to be separated. So in 1852, they built a huge home where they both could live. It had 30 rooms, comprising 6,000 square feet, divided in two symmetrical wings so that each family could live parallel lives. The house was split down the middle by a central hallway, a perfect mirror image from kitchen to parlor to decor, with a tall cupola in the center offering expansive views of the surrounding wilderness. So that sounds beautiful, doesn't that?
Yeah.
Sounds like a beautiful house.
I would be beautiful, and I guess I would also be confused if everything was identical on each side. I'd go into a room and I'd be like, was I just on this side? Am I on the left or the right side? Everything's the same on this side.
I love that because you'd be like, you know how you lose your phone sometimes?
Yeah.
Where I lose my phone? You can go into your kitchen, it's different. You can go into your living room, it's different. You can go in your bathroom, it's different. Here you'd be like, wait a minute, hold it.
Especially because it said that everything was kind of decorated each the same on each side. I would be confused, especially at night. If you're waking up groggy.
Oh my God. Yes. That'd be so creepy. So Argalus, his wife Adelia, and their 3 children lived in one wing, and Augustus and his wife Ann, come on with the A's, people,
Yeah.
and on the other, like everybody's an A. That's even more confusing. And no, I got,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, call someone Bill.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Bill?
Can we have another
Or
letter of the alphabet, please?
Yes, please. Or John. Well, come on.
Yeah.
They lived this idyllic and prosperous life for a while, but proved to be short-lived when it all began to unravel a few years later. So, here's where it starts. And I love 1800s because everything goes to crap in a hurry. Like, it's terrible. So
living
Christmas,
life on hard mode.
I know. Like, we don't think about it. Like, just to shave, you're taking your life in your hand.
Yeah.
Like, I think in late 1800s, they had the disposable razor, kind of. But most important, if you were poor, you still used a straight razor. You know what I mean? So, like, yikes. You know, and just making breakfast. You know, like, grab the whatever Jimmy Dean stuff and put it in the microwave. Pop-Tart. Let's go. I got to get to work. Or grab a breakfast bar. You know?
Yeah.
It was literally go out, get the eggs, go out, milk the cow, go out, come light the fire. Oh my God.
Who knows? The cow may kick me today.
Yeah, the cow might just be like, you grabbed me wrong, dude.
Yeah.
Bam! So, in the Christmas of 1855, it brought joy to the Foote mansion as Augustus and Ann were expecting their first child. Anne went into labor on December 19th and died during childbirth. Augustus was devastated. I mean, that was very, very common. Having a child was dangerous in the 1800s. Yeah. Then a few months later, his newborn, Mary, died as well. So he lost 2 kids in a matter of less than a year. This is Augustus, by the way. I know this is going to be confusing. People are going to go like, who? Wait a minute. Engulfed in grief, the home Augustus and his brother built and its empty sides soon became a constant, painful reminder of his loss. So think about it this way. Okay, here's Augustus, and he's lost everything. He's by himself, right? And Argalus, he's got his wife, he's got his kids. He's really cool, right? So it's lively on this side, dead on this side, right?
It literally looks like you're looking into a parallel life because your twin looks like you, so it looks like you're looking into a mirror that just has everything, and you're on this side with nothing.
Yeah, and so anyway, engulfed in grief, on his empty side, soon became, like I said, a painful reminder of the loss, and soon Augustus could not bear, and he left the house. Servants and farmhands filled his wing. So basically what happened was Augustus kind of just said, I'm out of here. I can't take this anymore. I'm sure he went somewhere and built his own place, right? And then the servants and everything just took over that wing. So it's super weird. Your twin brother just decides, I can't take it. I got to get out of here. Because imagine this is a 6,000 square foot mansion. And you have 3,000 square feet, which is a pretty good size house in today's world.
Yeah.
Like mine's a little over 2,000 square feet. And, I'm full to the brim with kids and everything like that. I just couldn't imagine just being there, right? Yeah. By yourself and your twin. What is he going to do? He can't be like, why don't you get married, man? Maybe he did. Maybe there were some arguments where he said, you need to get married. You need to move on with your life. But remember, this is the 1800s. Not necessarily mental health was put at the top, right?
Yeah.
But then in 1877, Augustus and Argalus were both widowers. So their lives started to just really start falling apart, okay? Also, they had Argalus had, his kids were fine, but, just like kids back in the day, they can be a little bit of a pain, and they kind of just were, doing whatever they wanted to do. It doesn't say in my research that they were bad kids or did anything bad. It was just, okay. So they didn't really live and not being married too, remember back in those days, is not a good thing, right? You need a wife around to help you. Because basically, and this sounds bad, but it's kind of like your labor force, right? You got to get out. They're working at the sawmill. They're working here. They're working there. So it's really difficult. And this is kind of a small town at the time. So eventually they sold the sawmill and abandoned the farm, relocating to Oshkosh, that was Argalus and Augustus. And they did try their hand at running a flour mill, but financial ruin was waiting in the wings for that endeavor. And both the mill and the mansion were foreclosed upon. So this is bad, right?
Yeah,
this is like you lose your wives, you lose your kids, you lose you lose your other wife, your kids are whatever, they're trying to make their own lives. So you go, you know what? We're gonna do a fresh start. All right, Oscar, we're gonna do a fresh start. Me and you, we're gonna go and we're gonna open a mill. We're gonna see how that goes. Oh, that went bad. We're bankrupt.
But now we don't have our farm.
Yeah.
No sawmill, and we just failed on this endeavor. So
yeah, right. So that could take you. It could have some strange problems, right? So the mansion, though, eventually became known locally as Foote's Folly. The reason they say that why is because there was kind of a term you use when things kind of in the 1800s and stuff, kind of when things start to go bad. So a folly, I'm going to date myself. So a folly is like something comedic or something like kind of bad happens, but it's still kind of funny. I don't know if I find this too funny, but the local area kind of known, know that's kind of,
it's like
maybe
a trip
these
and
guys.
fall.
Yeah. It's kind of like there's some bad stuff happened to these guys. Now, it has changed several times and eventually fell into disrepair. So the brothers spent their final years, what happened to the brothers, right? The brothers spent their final years living with Argalus, his son, Andrew, in New London. And no, it's not London as in London. Yeah. It is New London, Wisconsin, another kind of smaller town. This house, built for Andrew in the late 1880s, still stands today on the corner of Wyman Street and west of Beacon Avenue. It's not spooky at all. It looks like an old Victorian house. So basically, they live with their son. So how would you like? I don't know if you have any kids. I do. I have a son. Like everything goes to crap, and then you have to live with your son. Oh,
you
man!
Go, remember that giant mansion I gave you that we had you live in? On all the acres of land that you could play on. I think it's about time you repay me for that. Let me stay with you.
Yeah, I think it's time you come on. Help Dad out. So Augustus died in 1901, followed by Argalus in 1902. And like I said, the inseparable brothers were buried side by side with their deceased wives and children in nearby Eureka Cemetery. You can go there and see the gravestone. One of the brothers' obituaries stated they were impossible to tell apart and shared everything throughout life. Their minds were one, but one thought, it seems, and their pleasures and sorrows were shared. Their pocketbooks were combined, and neither one knew what a quarrel was. That they trusted each other in ways that few brothers ever could. Living into their early 80s before the time of Augustus' passing, it was said they were the oldest surviving twins in the United States. So there you go. That's something really interesting, too. I did not know. It sounds like these are really cool guys. Like they got along. It says they didn't fight. They just knew each other's thoughts. And that brings me to twins. I know a couple twins here and there. And it's funny when you meet them. And it's weird at first because you look at them and you're like, okay, who's Jake and who's Joe? And, you kind of talk to them. You're like, I don't know about you, Oscar. I don't know. Maybe you do have a twin, but I do not. At least that I know
No.
of. Wouldn't that be weird to have a twin and just you guys just were inseparable and you knew each other's thoughts, but also the crap that happened to your brother happened to you, and you're like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's like one of us has to win here. We both can't be failing in this aspect. Yeah, no, I have cousins who are twins. And it was always weird to me because nobody could tell them apart. But because I grew up with them, I knew one like had a scar on his cheek. So I was like, all right, this one's Chris and this one's Brandon. Like this, they didn't have the same first letter as like any of the other twins. Like these guys did, the two A's.
Yeah, that drive me crazy. It
Yeah,
drive me absolutely crazy. Do twins scare you? Like in horror movies, they always have twins and they're all plotting something.
No, I always thought that was. I guess it was because I grew up with my cousins being twins. I guess twins never really freaked me out. I think the kind of linked mind aspect is kind of weird, but I don't think they're spooky in themselves. I mean, if it was two creepy little ghost girls at the end of a hall, then it'd be a little spooky. But in general, not really.
I can agree. So as the years wore on, curious visitors would, obviously go to this manor, and it gained a reputation for more than its decay. Was either explore its shadowy halls. I mean, you saw the picture, you kind of get it. Some who entered claimed to hear footsteps in empty rooms, to see fleeting figures in the corner of their eye, perhaps the lingering spirits of the Foote family. Ghosts and legends of the Foote mansion by the 1930s. The dilapidated mansion was already known as a haunted local curiosity. In 1935, this is so funny. At least I find it funny, Oscar. A local women's group offered Halloween tours of the house. Now, what does that mean? A local women's group?
Yeah, they didn't want to do a book club like everybody else.
Yeah.
They were like, you see that creepy mansion over there? Let's just have people pay and we'll just take them around it.
Yeah, let's throw them around. Oh, by the way, a bunch of people died here, and a bunch of tragedy, a bunch of shadows. Here's a footstep. Okay, come on, everybody.
Yeah. That'll be a quarter, please.
That'll be a quarter. Yeah, 1935. Yeah. A quarter, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's expensive. Myriad of legends grew over the years to fill the black void inside this abandoned mansion. Stories that it served as a safe house, for escaped slaves on the Underground Railroad during the Civil War. It had secret tunnels and stairways. Some say the mansion was used for bootlegging moonshine during Prohibition. And the notorious gangster Al Capone would stop by on his way to Hayward, where he laid low when things got too hot in Chicago. At night, covered trucks were seen coming and going from the mansion. According to rumor, a machine gun was mounted on the turret in the cupola. Okay. Visitors exploring the abandoned home would often hear footsteps overhead from the second floor, though no one was there. Passerby saw mysterious floating lights in the dark and the vacant windows, and sometimes the apparition of two twin boys, here we go, Oscar, could be seen playing in the yard. Police are frequently called out to investigate these reports, only to find the house empty. So that's kind of what. Now let's back up here. You got a machine gun?
Yeah.
Where's the machine gun? What are we doing? Well,
they got to protect, especially if they're doing bootlegging through there, and you have mob. Head honchos of the mob rolling through, like Al Capone himself.
All the bosses.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna need those things. What's a mansion? What's a mansion without a machine gun, anyways? Come on.
Yeah. What are we doing? Now, Al Capone, I've done this before. There is a hotel in Wisconsin called Hotel Hell. It burned down several times. There is tunnels under there. Supposed to be Al Capone's treasure under there, which no one has found, by the way, where he would keep underneath these caverns, keep the liquor and stuff, whether it be moonshine, whether gin or whatever they're making, badly, by the way. And people don't understand. Liquor back in the day had no quality control. Okay,
No.
so it was like two guys, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, stir it around. Here's your gin. Like,
you want to feel weird? You want to feel weird? Here goes all this stuff I mixed together.
Yeah, here's all this stuff going on in there. And yes, Al Capone used Wisconsin. It is his playground. Hayward, you can go into Little Bohemia, which I highly recommend if you want to. If you're a true crime fan, or if you're not, or just see really interesting, it's absolutely gorgeous in Little Bohemia. That's where Al Capone was, and the bullet holes are still in the hotel room, and you can stay in that room. They have not touched it, and it's really cool. I have not visited. I want to get up there, but my buddies who have said it's really cool. They slept in the room. Felt a little off. They're not as paranormal as I am, but they did say that they felt like somebody's watching them, and they didn't like the bullet holes near where they slept. They said it was like, it's not like it's gone through. You know what I mean? It's not like you're sleeping and there's a bullet hole and you can look out. Hey, there's the trees in the forest. It's kind of, they kind of put a board in between them, but you get the idea. A fascinating thing. And of course, this place is haunted, which I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Let me back up. Oscar, what do you think? Yes or no? Haunted or not haunted?
I would assume it would be haunted. I think any place that sees tragedy in any sense is probably going to get that sense of energy, or something's going to be locked there in a sense.
Yes. I think it's haunted.
Yeah.
Now, just because, I don't like the twins playing in the yard thing. That freaks me out.
Because they weren't children when they were there. So why are there two twin children? Unless they had twins themselves, but it doesn't say anything like that.
Right. By the way, all my paranormal investigators listening to this podcast, this is on private property. So I always give the warning. Please go to the local police department and tell them you're investigating. Most cops in little towns or medium-sized towns are like, yeah, whatever. You get hurt, it's on you kind of attitude. But don't, because that's all you need is a cop to show up and chew you out. Small town cops, I know small town cops, they're bored. They have nothing better else to do. So, just be careful when you're doing it. And also know, too, this is full of tragedy. There is death. Nothing but death in this place. So, I don't know. I just think there are places like this, as we know, all around the world. But this is like, it's sitting on I was looking at Google Maps really quickly. It's sitting on still 200 acres. There's nothing around it. It's a farmland.
That's a crazy amount of land.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's just there. So it's weird. You know what I mean? It's like how you drive by maybe in Colorado near the mountains and stuff, and those old mining towns or towns that just got abandoned, ghost towns. Right? Isn't it weird? You're just driving and there's a McDonald's and there's a Burger King and there's whatever. And then there's nothing. Right?
Yeah, there's actually a road where alongside this creek, as you're riding on the freeway, there's abandoned little, I guess, gold miners. They would go down into the creek and kind of look for gold, and there's just these abandoned kind of shacks there on the side of the creek that are just dilapidated, and they're still standing, which is crazy. But you can see what was. It's crazy to see what used to be, I guess, an active area, and now it's just empty.
I know. That just blows me away. So I got this information from a local author. The book is entitled Echoes from the Past. Sorry, Daniel, I'm going to butcher your name. Bookvitz? I have no idea. So you can get Dairyland Frights at Gmail.
Nailed it.
He can get a hold of. He can get a hold of me. Now he published a novel. This is from 2020, inspired by the story of the Foote brothers, called Echoes from the Past. So, what'd you think? Nice little scary haunted story. It's always tragedy in the 1800s. I mean, it's just a terrible time.
Yeah,
it's like you're not dying from childbirth. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's like like I was saying. It's just living life on hard mode.
Yeah, man. Just you think it's hard when your cell phone is dead.
Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot to charge my cell phone.
What am I gonna do? Because I can't do anything because my cell phone is dead.
Yeah. So awesome. So thank you so much, Oscar. I love talking to you about your stories and everything. Would love to have you on again. Or if you'd like to have me on your podcast, love to do that. What do you have coming up for my spooky friends that they can kind of look forward to and check out?
Well, I have another episode coming up pretty soon where we have an individual who shares tales of being haunted, astral travel, astral projecting, encounter with a reptilian. It goes the gamut of things that I think people will enjoy. I also have other videos that I'm going to put out, just kind of short videos on, certain things going on in the world today, whether it be the drones that people see, things like that. There's always that. There's always somebody to interview. So if people like to listen to people share their experiences, then definitely they can tune into the show for that.
Absolutely. And I highly recommend Oscar and Induced Fear. I've listened to a few episodes. I love it. He's a little more scarier than I am, which is great. That's why I love to have a variety of guests on. Talk about. You just had Deborah Roque on.
Yeah,
she was awesome. I love her having her on the show. She did a reading for me.
Nice.
That I did not put the reading on, folks. I know everyone's disappointed because it was really personal, Oscar. Like she was telling me stuff like, how do you know that? Like there's no way she would know that. There's no way. Unless she's
actually going to do a reading for my fiance. So.
Awesome. So I would get the tissues out. She talks about personal stuff that she'll bring up. It's amazing. I can't say enough good things about her. And I've had, I had to, when I had her on, I just wanted to put it on there, but man, she just brought up some stuff that hit home. That I was like, I can't do it.
No, that's yours. That's your moment.
Yeah, that's my belongs to me. It's personal. Yeah. But just know, So I love that. Love reptilians. Really quickly, your quick take on the drones.
On the drones, I think it's government things.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I.
That's my quick take. It's always the government.
I agree. I think they're doing something just to say, we can do this, and this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So take it or leave it, guys. But it's interesting. I feel sorry for the people in New Jersey looking out and going, are we being attacked?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Awesome.
It's an alien invasion happening right now.
I love it. So, my spooky friends, I will put all the links to Oscar's podcast and his YouTube and everything on there, so you can go check them out. Please show him some love. We have a little coven here that I love of all my podcasters and paranormal and mediums and everything, and go check them out because not only they need your support, but also they have some great stories. I mean, you're missing it if you don't. That's all I have to say on that. So thank you so much again for taking time out of your day, Oscar. Like I said, I'd love to be on your show. I'd love to have you back on sometime, and we can talk
100%,
about
John, of course.
Talk about, maybe some other spooky things. So awesome. Thanks, Oscar. You have a great day, and I will talk to you later, buddy.
All right. Thank you so much again. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.